This next story is going to sound like a plot straight out of a web series. It has two main characters, a lawyer and an underworld criminal. But one of them led a double life for years until the day the truth came out. And that truth came with a huge cost. Back in the year 2012, a court in Australia convicted well-known gangster Tony Mockbell and jailed him for 30 years. Mockbell had pleaded guilty to being the mastermind of a drug syndicate. He was the leader of a group called The Company, which killed several dozen people over years of violence on the streets. It was an open and shut case. Until a curveball, a revelation on none other than the jailed gangster's lawyer that flipped everything around. This is Nicola Gobbo. She used to be a criminal defense barrister, but a report in the year 2020 found that Nicola Gobbo was living a double life as a lawyer and as a police informant. How did all of this transpire? Let's break down the whole timeline. At the age of just 25 years old, Gobbo became the youngest woman in Victoria to sign the bar roll. She was born in 1972 and is 53 years old now. So that means that she would have achieved this feat in the year 1997. But 2 years before this, she first registered as a police informant. At the time, all of 23 years old in 1995, she was studying law at Melbourne University and also working part-time at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. So why register as a police informant? Like web series tell you, it isn't always a volunteering decision driven by an act of service. A lot of times, people do it to avoid police action or even jail time. Let's go further back by 2 years. In 1993, Gobbo was busted for drug possession, but she was let off on good behavior once. However, it happened again in 1995 during another raid at her house. And that is when Nicola Gobbo decided to become an informant and avoid serious police charges. So she enrolled. Let's take the timeline forward now. Like I mentioned, in 1997, she officially began her legal practice. But in 1999, Victoria Police re-registered Gobbo as an informant. Then again, for the third time, 6 years later, in 2005. And this was also the time when Melbourne was a battleground for gang wars, which started escalating in early 2000s. And so, authorities found themselves under increasing pressure to curb all this violence and blood spilling on the streets. In fact, records show Nicola Gobbo actively working as a police informant from 2005 all the way to 2009, a timeline that overlapped with crackdown and prosecution of gang lords. So as a defendant, Gobbo extracted information from her criminal clients and passed it on to the authorities. Everything went smoothly until many years later in 2018, when media reports started surfacing on her so-called double life. Nicola Gobbo as Lawyer X or Informant 3838. Then in December that same year, an Australian High Court ruled that Gobbo had breached her duty to court and her clients by acting as a police informant on underworld figures. A commission was then set up, and 2 years later, in 2020, a royal commission concluded that Gobbo had indeed committed fundamental and appalling breaches of her legal obligations. A legal scandal that triggered an avalanche for all the cases that she touched. Because Gobbo had other high-profile clients as well. Between 1997 to 2013, Nicola Gobbo represented more than 1,000 people, mostly connected to organized crime. And many cases got tainted because of her double life. Case in point, underworld criminal Farooq Orman. In 2019, court overturned his murder conviction because Nicola Gobbo pushed key witnesses against her own client to inform on him. But why am I telling you this story now? Because just last week, prosecutors in the state of Victoria decided against a retrial for Tony Mockbel, one of the biggest names in Australia's underworld. The same man whose trial we began this story with, who was also represented by this lawyer cum police informant, Nicola Gobbo. Mockbel's age and declining health also worked in his favor. And so, a drug lord has officially walked free forever, when he could have been behind bars till 2042. Gobbo, on her part, remains in hiding for more than 6 years now, afraid for her safety after the whole plot got exposed. In the year 2021, she had sued the state of Victoria, accusing the police of, quote, negligence and high-handed, insulting or reprehensible conduct in inducing her to become a police informer. Gobbo said that this damaged her physical and mental health. But in June 2025, the Supreme Court rejected her claim for damages and determined that she, in fact, was not coerced. This whole saga has many grey areas and lingering questions on who really is at fault here. It also casts a shadow over the entire tradition of police systems, not just in Australia, but across the world, of turning people into informants and the risks that come with it. What about protection? And how does this revelation really change a known drug lord's history of crimes? As we speak, the legal fallout from this scandal in Australia is still ongoing, and nobody knows when it will end.